You can listen to The Professional Left wherever you get your podcasts, on Netroots Radio, or at our website, proleftpod.com, where you can also contribute to this podcast. There's a PayPal button at our website, or you can mail us a letter and or contribution at P.O. Box 9133, Springfield, Illinois, 62791.
This is the podcast for December 16th, 2022. It's not safe for work.
Recorded live from the Cornfield Resistance, where we can't wait to win the golf game with Trump. No purchase necessary. It's The Professional Left with Drift Glass and Blue Gal.
Hey, everybody.
Yeah, it's a golf game with Trump. We could win it. Go vote for it.
I don't think the golf game is with Trump. I watched that tragic video.
Yeah.
I think you win a group game on the golf course, one of his golf courses with your friends.
So it's like,
and then he's also giving away. It's $99 to buy these NFTs.
Right. So it's
but no purchase necessary.
It's like Caddy Day at Caddy Shack. One day,
exactly.
You allow the peasants,
the hoi polloi,
to be in the pool for 15 minutes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Well, I will save up all my urine for that day.
I was going to say you'll have lots of candy bars to put in the bottom of the pool, right?
Many candy bars, yeah.
No, but the fact that he takes crypto,
right,
for that, and then there is no purchase necessary to win one of the prizes, so you can win a Zoom call with Trump, and not pay him the $99 and just announce at the beginning. I don't know, what would you say? How would you handle that if you won a Zoom call with Trump? What would you do?
How long do I have?
Until he hangs up. So.
No, about 30 seconds.
Yeah. How would you?
I wouldn't. It's pointless. It's like, why you're questioning someone or asking someone who's insane and a pathological liar, and nothing,
and a malignant narcissist. Yeah.
Nothing anyone says is going to bother him.
But for comedy gold or for performance art, I would just start crying.
Oh,
Mr. Trump, you're my favorite president, more than Lincoln, more than Washington. I
have shaved my head, so I could do that.
Yeah, I gave up Christmas last year and this year so that you can be reinstated as president.
Mm-hmm. Don't make DeSantis do this to me. I don't want DeSantis as president no more. I want you back as the president. I can do that for 20 minutes.
Yeah, no, just put on the right picture and you're the right color and go for it.
Yeah. I can make up a background.
Sobbing.
I was
sobbing about why isn't he president? What happened? I gave you my life savings.
No,
I thought you were going to be reinstated by Thanksgiving. Q told everybody that it was going to be you.
I was your bundler in Springfield. I was your chief fundraiser in Springfield. And, I do it all again, Mr. President.
Yeah, how can we do it again now, Mr. President? Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
I was at like 17 Trump rallies all throughout the Midwest. And, I miss those things. You coming back to more Trump rallies. I'd love that.
When are you coming back? Oh, Lord. Well,
I could do that for 2 minutes and then someone at the other end would get wise and hang up.
Yeah, if they'd finally realize, okay.
Yeah, I'm sure
we got a letter from a Patreon, Drift Glass. Do you want to read it? It's about Twitter and stuff.
Sure. I'm sure there's an NDA that you have to sign before you get on.
Oh, I'm sure there is. I'm sure they have to check your background and talk
Secret Service comes to your house and boy,
you got to stay. You probably have to stay in character for 3 weeks.
Actually, why don't you go ahead and read that letter, honey?
Oh, from Patreon John.
Yeah.
By some Christmas miracle, I got allowed back on the Big Blue Bird site after 3 appeals. Well, that sounds similar to your experience, Jeff.
Yeah.
I think you had 12 appeals. For my 3rd appeal, I sent a link to the Guardian UK article about Elon Musk granting a general amnesty to all suspended accounts and was basically like, what about me?
What?
I don't think this is what actually tipped the balance. I think with all the personnel shakeup at Twitter, my appeal finally landed on the desk of a reasonable person who reviewed all the evidence, saw the gross injustice, and reversed the prior decision, and stated that I had not, in fact, violated Twitter rules, so my account was restored. Part of me was almost expecting some little Nazi to sneer back at me that amnesty doesn't apply to lefty scum like you, which I would have handed over to the ACLU of Texas to sue under our very badly crafted Texas state social media law, forbidding Twitter from suspending people for political speech. I'm glad. I can't believe Texas. I do believe it. Texas passed a law governing Twitter. I believe that.
Sure.
Why govern anything else?
Because shadow banning conservatives is all that happens ever on Twitter.
Absolutely. I'm glad they just reinstated me instead, though it does feel like running back into a burning building or climbing out of a lifeboat to join playing in the Titanic ship band on deck as the vessel continues to sink.
Yeah.
And it's sad.
It's sad.
Twitter was, and maybe again, such a lovely tool. I always stayed off of Twitter on Sundays because that was my day of rest.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of my day to get away from everything. Still is. But I'm also off Twitter a lot more than I was. And you and I are looking for alternatives. You went on Post? Is that what you did
on Post.
this week?
I'm on Mastodon. I'm everywhere.
I think I'm on both of those too, but I haven't done anything with them really.
No. Well,
so
and I've never been anything other than clear-eyed. Twitter is an open sewer.
Right.
Twitter always has been an open sewer. It will continue to be so, but it has certain very useful features. And if you are not part of a network of promoting people, if you are not part of a podcast network, if you're not part of a broadcast network, if you're not part of a website that employs dozens of writers, if you're independent and you do not have a hype system and all you have is what you write and what you say, then the machinery of getting it out in front of people is what's there.
What's free, right?
What's free, and there are no people out there in the world promoting independent Midwest bloggers.
No,
just ain't. And so, or podcasters. And so, what we and I am like a lab experiment. What happens when you get canceled off Twitter?
Right.
I was off Twitter for 10 months for over nothing. I mean, I don't mean it was like it was so small. It was literally nothing. I had gone on a bit of a tear about Michael Gerson, I believe. And by tear, I mean I reposted many of the things he'd written when people were trying to sanctify him and said this guy was a monster. When he was writing during the Obama years, he was just fucking horrible. And I'm firmly convinced I had minders, people who were paying close attention, who were not liberals, who would report me for any infraction.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You were on a list for sure. Yeah.
And that's why I got sent to Twitter jail 4 times over bullshit.
Yeah, and when you hit the 6th time, you were banned. That's what happened.
But I was gone for 10 months. And my I blogged all that time. You and I podcasted all that time. My blog traffic fell, I don't know, 70%, something like that. Just dropped right off the edge of the table because there is, unless you are part of the Bulwark Network or unless you are part of the Sexy Liberal Tour, I'm not equating those two, but if you're not part of that, you do not have any system of promotion or making people aware of what you're doing other than what's freely available and that can be taken away just like that.
Right.
So, and that's what happened. And then I got back on Twitter, my traffic went back up and it's like, oh, this is a perfect experiment. This is blogging as an independent person with Twitter and without is a staggering difference. So, so I continue to dog paddle through the open sewer, realizing that it has gotten much worse in the last month, just much, much worse. But what you gonna do? A lunatic bought it, and as they
and he is mentally compromised, and he's got a lot of money.
Well, there was
do many people apparently. So
there was some, I think, probably Rising Sun or something like that during the You're Terrified of the Japanese 80s, that period of time. Michael Crichton, I think, was the book. But I remember a blurb from it that said something like, if you don't want Japan to buy your country, don't sell it to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you don't want this lunatic to run your social media site, don't sell it to him. Oh, nope. Nope, we have to because shareholders. So, okay, well, nobody asked me. So I'm just a deckhand on the Titanic. And
well, I hope those shareholders are happy because their shares are in the toilet. And
I hope they swapped them out for crypto as quick as they could.
That won't work either.
That shit is stable
Trump
as hell.
NFTs are not a good investment. I'll just go out on a limb and say that.
Well, and speaking of Twitter and Elon Musk, there was a little exchange this morning between Kevin Kruse, who we love very much, and Andrew Sullivan,
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
who just won't. I think
Andrew who?
Yeah, Andrew who. I think he's worried that there's not a fourth seat available at the Greenwald Taibbi Weiss table.
Oh, yeah.
Sucking up to Elon Musk.
Well, and let's face it, his original website was Reddit for a long time. It was where you went to look at cool pictures and cool videos.
Yep.
And I think Andrew Sullivan got the impression that he was hot shit because people were coming to his website. And because he was the source for that, everybody was sending Andrew Sullivan cool pictures and cool videos and cool things. And so he would post those and everybody went to see them during that golden age of the internet, which no longer, things change in a nanosecond these days. It is the Wild West.
Well, and
Andrew Sullivan thought they were coming for him and they were not.
Well, and he was an editor of the New Republic, and he had a certain prominence, and he had a Rolodex, and he could always call in his friends to put him up on a job. And when he got a job, he always hired his friends. Yeah. And he moved to New York and moved away immediately because he hates people. And he went to work for the New Yorker, and then nobody would sit at the cafeteria table with him because he's a crackpot. And then he just started on Substack writing about how shabbily everyone treats him. But every now and then he puts up the bat sign to his good friend Bill Maher to remind Bill Maher that it's been simply ages since he's been on that yummy HBO show, and he's very much available to be put in front of the camera to talk shit about liberals. In case Bill Maher wants to put me on camera, I'm right here because you just put me right on television. I will talk shit about liberals all day long. And the reason I believe this is because there's a back and forth about Elon Musk, and he's not the same person he was a few years ago. And it's because his political trajectory, a casual centrist to QAnonish reactionary, is becoming increasingly common within the SV leadership class. That's from someone named Ben Tarnoff on Twitter.
What's SV?
I have no idea. Okay. Supervillain? I don't know.
Maybe. Or social I don't know. Anyway,
or libertarian, or I will look it up. Yeah. It doesn't really bear on the story because Andrew Sullivan jumped right in and said, it's simply a function of being around this generation of Puritan leftists. They'll turn any sane person into a reactionary, and, because shitting on liberals is always a good time to shit. And Kevin Kruse responds, must be exhausting to have no control over your own thoughts and emotions, which Andrew Sullivan never has. He's always been a whining baby man who got indulged. And he's a good writer, and he writes about gay marriage, or wrote about gay marriage very well, but he really, really fucking hates liberals. And he really hates having to share the political bed with liberals during the Trump years and during, as the Bush years wound down. And he's the guy who kept, Barack Obama is the greatest conservative president ever. And and he gave birth in my mind to this idea of pineapple ice cream conservatism, which is, if Andrew Sullivan likes pineapple ice cream, then pineapple ice cream is a cardinal conservative virtue and always has been. But if tomorrow he hates Korean food is some filthy liberal plot and blah, blah. But it's whatever whim takes him on a given day becomes incorporated into his philosophy of that's what a conservative really is. And so, and he's just gotten nut. And I've known a few British people like this. My mom was married to one who just got crazier and crazier as they got older and became more and more sort of adamant, table pounding, shut up and listen to me, you stupid colonial. And they were assholes. And Andrew Sullivan is just a big fucking baby asshole, but he has a platform, and he has friends who will put him on television.
So is he still on Substack? Is that where his internet presence is?
Yeah. He's on, and I think he has an honorary chair at Barry Weiss's Phrenology University, Cancel College, or whatever it's called. But it's all of these same people who were, except for Barry Weiss, who was 9 months old at the time, but all these same weirdos who were swirling around the sort of contrarian reactionary universe, Taibbi,
for attention, and clicks and dollars, which is the coin of the realm, right?
George Bush was at his height. They were all, Bush, and then Barack Obama, the black guy, got elected, and it turned out they were all just reactionary assholes. Yeah, and they've become caricatures of themselves, you know? So anyway, that's what Andrew
Well,
Sullivan's
the
up
reason
to
I
today.
asked about Andrew Sullivan and where he was is it seems to me that there is a lot going on in terms of choice of platform and where you will say certain things, the kind of things you might say on Bill Maher's show.
Right.
You wouldn't necessarily say on your Substack and vice versa. And there was no clearer sense of that this week than Tucker Carlson, who blamed the CIA for Joe Kent's loss in Washington state. And if you think that that is crackpot, absolute crazy QAnon style nonsense, you're right. It is. But Tucker Carlson didn't say this on his Fox show.
No.
Which is where he has bosses and people who will tell him what to say and what not to say.
And lawyers.
And lawyers, right. He said it on Tulsi Gabbard's YouTube podcast.
Oh, Jesus.
Hosting her good friend Tucker Carlson, who went on to blame the CIA for Joe Kent's loss in Washington. So I bring that up to bring up one of my affirmations for 2023, and I hope people will find this helpful. One of my affirmations for next year is I am not impressed. And I'm not impressed with Tucker Carlson. I'm not impressed with right-wing nut jobs who have a camera to speak into. I'm not impressed with media sensationalism, with Twitter drama, I'm not impressed with the Republican House of Representatives. And I think taking a page out of Joe Biden's book on this and being a little wry and a little bit chuckling about the amount of power they don't have, especially the backbenchers. They're about to find out that the only power they have is to go on Tulsi Gabbard's YouTube podcast and scream a lot.
Come on, man.
And the hardest one, I'm not impressed with my own fears. That is the hardest one to deal with. I put on my I am not afraid Elizabeth Warren t-shirt a lot between, the summer and the election of 2022. Because the midterms were scary. And every election is scary these days because we have PTSD from 2016, if not from 2000.
Yeah.
This is the thing that we're dealing with. But if they, and by they I mean, the evil forces of this world can impress you, then they can distract you. And my job, as I'm focusing, is there are micro ways that I can make the world a better place. Making blankets for at-risk kids, donating toothpaste and toothbrushes for the homeless, which we're doing this week. There are small things that we can do, you and I, to try to make the world a better place.
That's right.
And then there are macro things that are being done that we can support. The work of Moms Demand Action to get common sense gun control passed in this country. It is the guns, stupid, I keep saying. There are two bills that may go nowhere, but they are ideas that need to be promoted and talked about and pushed so that eventually they will be on a platform where things change and things happen. Jeff Merkley has a hedge funds can't buy houses bill. I believe it's Jeff Merkley. I'm sorry if it isn't, but there is a congressman and a senator putting out bills about hedge funds cannot buy housing and putting in a tax penalty for hedge funds that own more than 100 houses. And that tax penalty then goes to help actual residents with down payments on housing so that they can buy, and we'll have actually residents from the area that live there able to buy housing stock, because that's a huge problem these days. Hedge funds are buying up housing stock all over the country, and we're becoming a nation of renters.
Oh yeah, that's.
And then Katie Porter, no question that this is her bill. She's doing a Stop Super PAC Scams bill because there are super PACs out there raising a lot of money on, frankly, stupid right-wing voters, and then scraping the money off. And this, she doesn't mention Trump once in this bill, but you know what she's talking about.
Yeah, well, your $99 trading cards are the latest example.
Right. Well, and then Elizabeth Warren is working to reform crypto. There's a lot going on where we can support and we can amplify, and these are the kind of things that we need to amplify. And I keep coming back to this. I've mentioned this to you, I think 3 times today during class about they think their voters are stupid.
Uh-huh.
And you say, yeah, they're right. Their voters are stupid. Well,
they understand their voters very well.
But no one likes to be called that. And I think you start to amplify that point of Donald Trump thinks you're stupid enough to buy a $99 NFT for a chance to have a Zoom call with him. And that you are that easily persuadable. And people change their minds about things like that. Now, they change their minds and say, yeah, I'm going with DeSantis this time.
Right.
DeSantis, as everyone predicted on the left, is now totally anti-abortion, planning on passing legislation through his Republican legislature, restricting abortion dramatically in his state. He waited till after the election to do it. And he'll be, Mr. Anti-abortion all through the primaries until the general election and then back away from it. Mm-hmm. Everyone on the left knows what he's going to do.
Well, then I ask you, I'm not asking you to predict, but is there a timeline on which that strategy would work?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
Is there a future? Is there an alternate universe where Ron DeSantis going anti-abortion, all in, all the time until the election would succeed in getting him the nomination?
Oh, it does. I'm absolutely sure it does succeed in getting him the nomination. So he's not doing this because he's stupid.
No, exactly. That's my point.
He has a law degree from Harvard. He's been calculating, and had a very focused ability to know that going on Fox all the time was going to get him the nomination for Florida governor. That's all he had to do was be on Fox.
And that, I regret to say, makes my point, which is, yes, Republican voters are that stupid. They just don't like being called stupid. That's why everyone's advice about dealing with Republicans is don't make any sudden movements, don't raise your voice, don't call attention to the fact they're rubbing shit in their hair. And what? They're going to stop doing those things? Or they're going to get mad and vote super Republican?
I would love to think that eventually when Ron DeSantis starts trying to sell NFTs to fund whatever grift he's got going, that they finally, as some did in Georgia, throw up their hands and say, I'm done. I'm not going to vote anymore.
Yeah.
I'm going to devote myself to church suppers and country music or football, or, when you and I were traveling across the country and driving to Colorado through Kansas and Missouri and Western Missouri, and, seeing people armed at the rest stop.
Right.
We also saw a lot of people wearing football themed clothing.
We did.
For their team.
That's right.
And I thought, that's wonderful.
Go back to that.
Do more of that instead of destroying democracy. Back the Bulls or back the Chargers or back whoever you want.
Roll Tide.
Right.
Sure.
Boy, do I know about Roll Tide, living in Alabama for 14 years.
Well, and as you and I talked earlier today as well, the question is not whether or not Trump or Republican voters are stupid. Are they infinitely stupid?
Right.
Is there
right?
Or
is there a bottom either generationally?
Right.
Because this is the thing that Katie Porter said on the floor of the House. She said these, and again, she didn't talk about Republican or Trump or anything. She said these super PACs are victimizing seniors and veterans.
They are. That's true.
And as a consumer protection attorney for years, and this is exactly what I've been saying for months now. This is a consumer issue. You have been given license by Citizens United to make unlimited money by saying you back a cause or a candidate.
Right. That's right.
And you're bilking people. And I'm with Katie. I don't care if you're bilking Republicans or Democrats. I don't care if you're only bilking Republicans. I'm against fraud. I don't like people getting defrauded from their money by somebody.
I don't disagree with any of that. That should be very clear. But the point being, the minute you start questioning whether or not giving your Social Security check to Donald Trump is a good idea or bilking, their hackles go up. And, are you calling me stupid? Are you telling me I don't know how to spend my own money? Here, I'll give twice what I. And there's just this animal instinct that if you try to protect them from their own stupidity, they get stupider and they get angrier. And I think you should do it. It's the same thing with guns. I think we should just take them away from them.
Yeah.
You're never going to reason them out of their surrogate penises, but take their assault weapons away, melt them down, and make them into crosses. I don't give a shit. But you're never going to sort of gently coax them into understanding that they are being built. They might spontaneously discover that one day when they open their Visa bill and their wife goes, what the fuck is all this money going to Mar-a-Lago for?
Why am I being charged $100 a week for Trump super PAC? Yeah.
That might work. But no, I mean, this is speaking of lab experiments, this is a 50-year lab experiment in how dumb can these people be? And there's just no bottom to it. They're just infinitely willing to go along with people who tell them they're smart, who tell them that the liberals are plotting against them.
It's the CIA trying to prevent you from electing a Nazi in Washington State.
Well, and that brings me to a different topic, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, please proceed. Which
is, Smokin' Joe Walsh. Joe Walsh, not the singer. Joe Walsh, the very recently former Republican, going back and forth very respectfully with Bob Cesca, who we love very much, on the Twitter about a talking point that won't die. And the thing that won't die is this fantasy that there's a liberal media out there. And the liberal media is the problem. And you don't understand about the liberal media. And it was just watching him insist that this was true and watching Bob Cesca write a very long piece for his Substack and say, I just respectfully want to have this conversation with you, Joe, about whether or not this is true. I think it's absolutely false. It's 100% false. There is no liberal media. There is no fucking liberal media anywhere. But this is like the Winter Soldier. Even the reformed Republicans have deeply embedded in their psyche these trigger words that can be triggered, and they're just right back to their old selves. Well, yeah, I would go along with it, but the liberal media, there is no fucking liberal media. And you can go down and block it out. Look, here's right-wing talk radio. Fox News is the most popular cable channel in the universe. Here's all these people on social media who are on the right and tiny, tiny numbers on the left. And just look at all the guests who are booked on the shows and how many of them, it's like 3-1 Republicans. And look at how terrified the media is of being called liberal. So they will keep importing people into their universe who are clearly conservative and lie constantly, which Chuck Todd has said on a radio show. I know they're lying. I just can't say it because then they won't come back on my show. But the lie of the liberal media has been so deeply embedded in Joe Walsh's brain that he can't give it up. It's just a reflex. Well, that's the liberal media. And it's an excuse that all of these former Republicans use for why the conservative media had to be created and became this behemoth. Because you had to push back against the liberal media, which never fucking existed. And you go down a whole list of things these people believe, even though they have left the party. I refer to it as dry drunk republicanism, which is a dry drunk is someone who has stopped drinking alcohol but has all the bad behaviors of an alcoholic. They've stopped being Republicans, but they still hate liberals. They still hate the left. They still believe there's a liberal media. They still believe that we are all insufferable assholes. They still don't know shit about their own fucking party. And they still
love their tax cuts and hate the Green New Deal.
Yeah. They're not, they haven't changed. They've been embarrassed into altering their behavior to hate Trump. And that's a good thing. But they're all that deeply embedded psychological programming, which they helped engineer, is all still there. And you can see it happen. You can just see people get their backs up. I was joking with someone who blocks me. I mean, Tom Nichols getting up on his high horse, huffing and puffing about how insufferable liberals are. Like, dude, you are the smuggest, thinnest skinned asshole in the universe. And God knows, here's what I want for Christmas, Blue Gal. I want a job where I get a very well-paying gig in a national magazine stating smugly, shit that I told liberals that they were full of shit for believing 5 minutes ago. And pretending liberals either don't exist or they're all the squad, you know?
Yeah.
And that's it's,
that's one of those words that you can just say, Ilhan Omar.
Right. Woke Ilhan Omar.
Woke Ilhan Omar, and you're off to the races. Absolutely. Yeah.
And so I don't despair for democracy long term, but man, these allies of ours are deeply problematic, and
you said something there that I have been thinking about a lot.
Sure.
You don't despair for democracy long term.
No,
I think there is no one who believes more in the bedrock power of actual democracy than a right-wing grifter, because they're willing to go along and destroy and continually try to destroy democracy, knowing in their heart of hearts that they're not going to succeed for that, but they'll make money doing it.
I'm sure I understand that.
If I go off and try to tell a bunch of people, don't trust the vote, don't trust voting machines, send me money, and I weaken I don't want to say the American people, I weaken a segment of the populace and their trust in voting.
Right.
And I do that to raise money for my super PAC, which I'm going to use, like Marjorie Taylor Greene did, to buy a $92,000 SUV for my quote unquote campaign.
Right.
That I'm constantly seeing at the airport picking up my boyfriend.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's legal graft. That's what it is.
Sure.
But someone that does that, I think, has a great trust, just like right-wing Republican retirees giving money to Republicans who have already put in writing that they want to destroy Social Security and Medicare. Well, no one's ever going to really do that. So I can still support Rick Scott.
I understand that I can get away with murder all day long.
Right.
And I won't break the system completely.
It won't break the system. I believe so strongly in the strength of the system.
Right. That I can get away with murder.
That I can get away with murder in order to raise money.
Well, and that's, now I understand. And that's what both Kevin McCarthy said on tape, which they didn't know they were being recorded, and Mitch McConnell. The Democrats will save us from this son of a bitch.
Right.
The Democrats will fix Trump. You know, we all know he's a monster and a criminal and he's awful and shit, but Democrats will fix him. So we don't need to do anything. And
because we don't want our voters to be mad at us.
Right. But the pot will never boil over.
And then it did.
Because Democrats will come along, as they did with Clinton, as they did with Obama, as they did with Biden.
And they'll clean up our mess.
They'll clean up our mess. And
we'll laugh all the way to the bank.
Right. And last thing about Joe Walsh, he on Twitter says, and I agree with all of this, America doesn't need a superhero. America needs tolerance and empathy and freedom and truth and a renewed democracy and respect for the rule of law and candidates who accept election results and a clear rejection of authoritarianism and many more legal immigrants. To which I replied, you are describing the Democratic Party.
I loved that response.
You are describing the fucking
favorite response, favorite tweet of yours this week. Absolutely.
But he can't see it because liberal media. But what about the liberal media? What about all these other things that are complete bullshit and that, sober, thoughtful, calm, higher brain function for 5 minutes, you can maybe see that this is bullshit. But the minute the winter soldier keywords are invoked, boom, we're right back to bitching about this.
This is a great conversation, by the way. But this is what I mean when I talk about not being impressed. Because if you could get a truth serum shot into Joe Walsh, you'd find out I can't admit Driftglass is right because my brand and my paycheck depend on me being
this way.
This way. Right. Exactly. MSNBC is not going to have me on, even though I'm, C-class MSNBC guest. Right. And I'm on Saturday afternoons on MSNBC. I still get on.
Right.
And I won't if I just say this is the Democratic Party is the only way to go.
Right. Well, and they will say voting Democratic for the foreseeable future to get rid of the GOP is a necessary. Is a
necessary thing. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's like you got to go to the proctologist. You got to get that thing taken care of. You're going to have to do the painful, awful thing. but it's necessary. Rather than saying, look, the Democratic Party actually embraces all the values you say you believe in. All the shit that there's very little overlap are all just bullshit bumper stickers.
I do think Stuart Stevens comes close to saying that, though.
He does.
Yeah.
And I look
He's
at him.
the exception. Yeah.
Yeah. There are a couple of exceptions out there. And I will always say that during a conversation.
Yeah.
Stuart Stevens has come almost all the way across the aisle.
Mm-hmm.
And is willing to say, yeah, this is a racist party. It's been a racist party my entire time.
Yeah, this is the Republican Party. He said that last night. Don't pretend there's some magical Republican Party out there that is reasonable and will be the alternative to Trumpism. The entire party is this way.
Which is why I don't want to debate Stuart Stevens. I want to moderate a debate between him and Charlie Sykes, who are they're under the same roof. And now, Charlie, you say this is all liberals caused this because liberals called you racist and that made your party racist. Stuart Stevens, what do you have to say about that? I want to see these people debate each other because there's this weird schizophrenia among our allies. And I understand that they're like their own little itty bitty big tent, which is anybody who says bad shit about Trump is on board with us as long as they're not liberals. And so whether it's Joe Walsh or Stuart Stevens or Steve Schmidt or whoever, however odious they may be or however righteous they may be, as long as they said Trump is a poopy head, they can come play on our team. And liberals shut up about who we have on our team because, again, there's the metaphor I saw the other day about Stacey King. I told you this, I think.
I don't remember.
When listening to Never Trumpers take credit for the elections, Stacey King played for the Bulls during the Michael Jordan era.
Oh,
and there was a game in which Michael Jordan scored a career high, I think, 69 points. And Stacey King scored 1 point. And when asked how the game went, he said, I'll always remember this as the game where Michael Jordan and I combined to score 70 points.
Yeah.
And, yes, maybe this tiny sliver of Never Trump voters in Pennsylvania made the difference. But that's discounting the 97% of other voters who were just Democrats who made it possible for that little 2% to make the difference. Why, therefore, since you are not the winning run, we're all the winning run, why do you keep shitting on us? Why do you keep calling us stupid? Why do you keep berating us and calling us smarmy? Why is this alliance only one way? When we point out the fact that you made horrible mistakes, that you keep making money, ripping us off, that the megaphones that you have are largely unearned, we take a lot of shit. But why can't you acknowledge the Democrats were right? That your glorious victory over Trump would never have happened but for the entire Democratic Party.
Yeah.
As opposed to focusing on the squad, because the squad is what makes you money. Getting angry at those crazy liberals and their obsession with trans swimmers is what makes you money.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't bother me so much, but it is a one-way street. They expect to be respected. And they expect no fucking backtalk from the Democrats.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yet all they do is bitch about the accommodations that they now have because they burned their own fucking party now. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox.
We got to move on. He's going to get off his soapbox now. Jeff Glass is going to get off. We need to talk for a minute about these Mark Meadows. 34 members of Congress. Text messages, which I have not read all of them, and I don't think they've released all of them yet. I hope they're going to drip them out one by one by one for the next few months. But they're absolute plans, and we're supportive and promoting Marshall, Marshall law. Talking Points memo rolled out a series of posts Monday chronicling hundreds of text messages involving Trump, White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, and 34 members of Congress. The texts obtained from multiple sources sent before, during, and after the January 6th insurrection pull back the curtain on behind-the-scenes Republican efforts to overturn the free and fair election of 2020. They also reveal the lengths to which Trump's lieutenants would go to subvert the will of the people, the law, and the U.S. Constitution to install Trump the loser as president. And the extent to which they will source thingsomebitchsays.com at, these crazy right-wing blogs that have 40 people reading them every day.
Mm-hmm.
And those are getting quoted by Congress people.
Yes.
In text messages.
Mm-hmm.
To the to the chief of staff of the President of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
As solutions to our problem.
As grounds to overthrow the government.
Yeah.
And like a little swizzle stick in there, let's not forget Clarence Thomas's crazy bitch wife.
Oh. And her drunk texts, her continual drunk texts.
Yep. And since there is no ethics code for the Supreme Court, Clarence Thomas, who, let's remember now that it's clear, was the only vote on the Supreme Court against releasing these texts because his crazy ass racist wife was smack in the middle of it.
Right.
And he didn't recuse himself.
He knew her texts were in there. Yeah.
So it's not merely a conflict of interest. It's a conspiracy.
Well, and it's a conspiracy to keep going and have all the fun we want on the Supreme Court. The most corrupt Supreme Court we've had in a century. Right. They're partying with right-wing lobbyists constantly, apparently leaking what their decisions are going to be to make the lobbyists happy. Oh, don't worry about that. We've already decided to vote with you. Really?
Yeah.
Alito is just a monster.
Well, and this is the benefit of long-term planning.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
This is a
They've been at
50-year
this
project. Yep.
The Federalist Society has been wanted exactly what they're getting, which is a constant stream of pro-pollution, pro-corporate decisions from the court that nobody notices because they're not about abortion, they're not about transgender rights, they're not about gay marriage, they're about corporate power. And this is, again, what I want to bring. I'm going to bring it up again. Don't be impressed with the noise from Fox News. Realize what's happening behind the scenes, what they're stealing from all of us. Our planet is dying. We are all dying. And I don't mean that in a morbid way. Excuse me. I don't mean that in a morbid way. I mean, our time on this earth is limited. Don't spend it being wrapped up in the drama of the reality TV that is Fox News.
No, take the threat seriously, but don't
take the threat seriously.
Right.
And document the atrocities. I'm all for that. But do not let yourself be troubled by that. Focus on what Senator Sheldon Whitehouse is on this. He's paying attention to every court case that comes out of that court that's pro-corporate. We have leaders in our party who are doing things.
Right. Boring government things.
Work.
Right. Which is what they're supposed to do.
Yep. In a perfect world, we would have no reason to pay attention to Congress except as they benefited and made a more perfect union every day.
I'm sure Tony Scalia is just spinning in his grave over the terrible things. Robert Bork is just shaking his fist in hell, going, it could have been me. I could have been a contender. This week, the New York Times published a piece a few days ago saying it was difficult to figure out whether Elon Musk was a far-right conservative because, he once claimed to be a centrist, which brought a lot of people to the, what the hell is wrong with the New York Times table? And I thought,
welcome to the party.
Welcome to the fucking party. And I thought this was time for a little story, a quick story about the city of Chicago. And it's about retribution and what happens when you don't put down the monster completely. Once upon a time, there was a city of Chicago treasurer who I knew in passing. I didn't know her personally, but I knew her to look at her. And Miriam Santos, and she was the city of Chicago treasurer who was convicted in 1999 of mail fraud and attempted extortion. So not exactly an uncommon occurrence among politicians in Chicago. Her conviction was made possible by evidence given by some of her subordinates who were told by the Chicago clout enforcers, political enforcers. The city of Chicago has a lot of political officers who enforce orthodoxy and keep the system running, that the underlings could either cooperate or lose their jobs and their pensions and maybe go to prison.
Mm-hmm.
So they cooperated. They testified. They got squeezed and they testified, and they were quietly transferred to low-level jobs in other departments. Now, here's the twist in the story. After Santos had served 4 months of a 40-month prison sentence, a federal appeals court overturned the conviction.
Oh, my goodness.
So Miriam Santos was reinstated to her old position, where she had now had access to all the clout machine, all the political enforcers who had told all her subordinates to narc on her. And she just turned them around and said, that's it. And so the word went out from the same people who had squeezed her subordinates that they were all to be sacked immediately and their pensions were to be taken away because they didn't put her down completely. And that's the lesson here that everyone who works in a corrupt hierarchy understands. The lesson from The Wire. You come for the king, you best not miss.
Yeah.
And I am convinced, and this is the case with deranged billionaires who buy social media platforms, or lunatics who lead political parties, or amoral senior executives at media corporations, that they're terrified. The people who are under them are terrified of turning on them. Even though Trump's out of power, he might come back and kill you all. Even though Elon Musk is insane, he could take away your livelihood like that. And even though the New York Times is a venerable institution that's been around for centuries, the mob might come for them. The charge of a liberal media might stick. So we'd best not start taking sides between, the fascists and the anti-fascists. Let's just say that we're not sure where Elon Musk stands on these things. On the same day, he calls for Dr. Fauci to be persecuted.
Right.
Using his giant platform that he just overpaid for. And there's wisdom in that. But it really is about fear and hierarchy and the fact that so many people are clinging to their position in the system so tenuously. They're terrified that if the bad guys come back, they'll shake the tree and then they won't have jobs at all. So, which is what benefits being one of the benefits of being a small Midwestern podcast,
right? That nobody listens to except for a very select, very intelligent,
very attractive, very
attractive, and beautiful,
very sweet-smelling,
and lovely.
Yeah.
We do love you guys.
We don't exist on a tenuous Christmas tree that you can shake and will fall off like an ornament.
No, but there are people who listen to us on the down low.
Oh, yeah. No, I know that for a fact. I absolutely know that for a fact.
We absolutely know that there are people listening to us on the down low. And
there are people at the Bulwark who listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say Schmeeth Schmolberman because, that would be wrong. I'm not going to say Christopher L. Hayes because that would be, inferring things that one can't prove. And we're not Republicans, so we can't be inferring them. But we do know for a fact that there are prominent people of influence who do listen to this podcast and do read our blogs and do read Crooks and Liars, but who do so very, very on the DL.
On the down low. That's
absolutely.
Right. That's right.
Hey, you want to know what?
Drift Glass, we got a news roundup to do. The Bidening continues. Yay, Biden signed into law a bipartisan bill that codifies same-sex and interracial marriages. Yes. The landmark legislation replaces the Defense of Marriage Act, which defined marriage as between a man and a woman. Boy, those were the days.
Yeah.
What? And now we have the Respect for Marriage Act, which prohibits states from denying the validity of out-of-state marriages based on sex, race, or ethnicity.
You know what this reminds me of?
What?
The Volstead Act.
Oh.
Prohibition. Let's do that. Oh, this is a terrible idea. Oh my God, this is a terrible idea. Let's undo this immediately.
Yeah.
And they did. And thank God we have a Democratic Senate, a Democratic House, and Joe Biden with his pen to sign this. Joe Biden's doing a great job.
Yes, he is.
Just a great job. I go to bed at night pretty relaxed, knowing that Joe Biden and the Democratic Party are running more or less the country, despite the fact that Republicans are trying to destroy it. And big news, and I know it's not big news to solar energy people and wind energy people who've been, alternate energy, but for science fiction nerds and for science nerds.
For science fiction nerds, this is a big deal.
Nuclear fusion, not fission. Fission is splitting atoms apart. Fusion is slamming them together and creating an excess of energy so that the amount of energy that comes out of the reaction is greater than the amount of energy that goes into the reaction. And scientists have achieved nuclear fusion with a blast of 192 lasers. It's just a small thing. It's in a lab. It took a whole billions and billions of dollars over decades. But scientists studying fusion energy at the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory in California say they have produced the first fusion reaction in a laboratory that created more energy than it took to start it. And it's not going to be tomorrow. It's not going to be next week. But eventually, we will have fusion energy on planet Earth, the power of the sun in the hands of men. And I think it's amazing. Human beings.
It is amazing. And all the people that talk about, I paid into my Social Security, so I should get my Social Security. I get you. I hear you. You paid into this.
You did.
Your tax dollars at work.
Yes, absolutely.
And this is going to change the world. It really is.
Mm-hmm. Eventually.
Well, I think our perception, scientists' perception of what can be done, what is possible, changed this week. And that's not a small thing.
No, once we found out that humans wouldn't die in space, that animals could live in space, that changed the perception of space
of
flight.
What is possible. Exactly. Yeah, and then we go forward. Again, don't be impressed with the negative things. Be committed to changing the world and making it a better place. Activists and allies in alliance with armed community self-defense groups lined up to defend a drag queen Christmas outside the Aztec Theater in San Antonio, Texas. Because, that open carry state plays both ways, Driftgrass.
Yeah, it cuts both ways. It sure does.
And it turns out there were more people defending a drag queen Christmas than there were from Texas Freedom Force militia trying to tear it down.
You know what that was? It was a drag queen Christmas miracle. That's what it was.
It was a drag queen Christmas miracle. Yes, it was.
I want to see It's a Wonderful Life done in drag. That's what I want to see. Now, those are all wonderful stories. I got to let you down a little bit. It's about Chuck Todd in Chuck Todd News. Chuck Todd, the host of Meet the Press, is afraid that a Trump criminal referral would, quote, add negatively to the political stew.
You mean he won't get Republicans other than Asa Hutchinson on his show?
Right. That's right.
Because they would have to be asked about this.
Right.
And they don't want to be on when they have to be asked about that.
That political stew is not the same without Newt Gingrich there.
The political stew is your Rolodex for your show. That's what you're talking about, Chuck Todd.
So he's never going to change.
The world's largest crypto exchange, and don't forget, Donald Trump will take your crypto.
He will.
Is blocking the ability to withdraw your funds after getting hit with almost $1 billion in withdrawals of actual money over 24 hours.
Now I know why I thought of It's a Wonderful Life. I did a post about a run on the Bitcoin bank. So
the Bitcoin bank. Yes, there was a run on the Bitcoin bank.
Yeah.
Binance. It's called Binance. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Has registered $1.9 billion of withdrawals in the past 24 hours. Blockchain data firm Nansen, again, these companies, said on Tuesday, as the world's largest crypto exchange said it had temporarily paused withdrawals of the USDC stablecoin.
Yeah. You know what? I am not going to learn a new vocabulary to buy milk. I'm just not going to do it.
It's going to be over in a matter of maybe months. I don't know. I feel sad, but at the same time, $1 is $1.
Yeah. Yeah. Sound is the pound, honey. Sound is the
pound. Pound is the pound. A world around.
And please don't bombard us with all money is fiat money and gold is the only money and so forth. I've been to Galt's Gulch.
We get it.
It's filthy.
We do get it.
It's filthy. It's a Somali pirate paradise in Galt's Gulch. It's not heaven. Elon Musk's Twitter isn't paying its bills, which is weird because I understand he's very rich. Twitter has stopped paying the rent on some of its office leases and hasn't paid numerous other vendors since Elon Musk acquired the company in late October. He's learning from Trump. Just don't pay your bills and you can save money that way.
Tucker Carlson, another person you should not be impressed with, explicitly called for Elon Musk to leak people's private Twitter DMs. It is always projection with him.
Yep.
He doesn't want to talk about the text messages that have been leaked. So he goes after Twitter DMs and makes that the story. He did that with another thing this week where he he wanted to talk about, again, all the FBI agents doing such and such, or the CIA agents overturning elections in Washington state, when what he really doesn't want to talk about is DHS agents participating in January 6th.
Right. No, look over there. Look over there. Don't look over here. Look over there.
And I'll just change the words around and make it about them instead of the truth about my side, and distracting everybody by making you impressed with what he's saying.
The anti-abortion movement is now seeking to jail people for trafficking in illegal abortion pills.
There's no such thing as illegal abortion pills. You can mail an abortion pill to somebody.
Yeah,
it's your mail.
Yeah, but God's law, honey. God's law. Mm-hmm.
Matthew Kaczmarek, a Trump appointee to the federal court in Texas, spent much of his career trying to interfere with other people's sexuality, and he has just fired the first shot against birth control, in an opinion which is both incompetently drafted and makes several obvious legal errors. Mm-hmm. And there were some legal analysts. There was an article about this, I think, at Vox. It said if any judge was going to come out with this crazy decision, it was going to be this jackass.
Yeah. Well,
a Trump appointee, unqualified judge who spent his career trying to get people not to have sexy time, going after contraception. Mm-hmm. But he's on the bench.
Yeah.
And he has that power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They are coming for your contraception. They are.
Oh, they're coming for everything. They're coming for all your stuff. They're coming for your body. They're coming for your money. They're coming for your privacy. They're coming for it all. And these are the small government people.
Yeah.
Rachel Bitecofer noticed on Twitter that the data don't lie. Republicans killed their fellow Republicans by lying to them about COVID to make money and win elections.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And the Republican Congressman Ralph Norman, who begged Mark Meadows to have Trump declare martial law in a text message, said his only regret is that he misspelled the word martial. We also found it interesting that Congress people said, that was 2 years ago, because no fair remembering stuff.
Oh, yeah, we're getting no fair remembering stuff hits every day. The Trump Organization was found to have been, quote, willfully disobeying 4 grand jury subpoenas and 3 court orders during a criminal contempt trial held in secret last year.
And apparently they're going to start fining them big bucks. Yeah. So Special Counsel Jack Smith has subpoenaed election officials in Nevada, New Mexico, and Georgia for all communications involving Trump, his campaign, lawyers, aides, or allies from June 1st, 2020. Now that's before January 6th, 2021, isn't it?
What?
Through January 20th, 2021. Smith subpoenaed Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger for his testimony before a grand jury on December 29th, or alternatively, Raffensperger can turn over all subpoenaed records to the FBI. And if you destroyed any of that data or deleted all of your emails because you didn't want to give them to feds, you're in even bigger trouble.
Yeah, you can't do that. You see, you can't do that. I know that there's going to be some Trump judges who say you can do that, but they're idiots and they don't know what they're talking about. So don't listen to them.
Right, speak up just a little bit into the microphone, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just whispering for dramatic effect.
I know.
Yes. Hello, Twitterland. Hello, podcast listeners. This is your old pal Driftglass here on the AM side, talking about local news. In local news, you might be familiar with a company called Gatehouse Publishing, which is a hedge fund, loot and scoot organization that buys local newspapers, guts them, and then leaves. They've been doing this for a very long time. They are a blight upon the land, and they've done it to our local paper. Now, our local paper was a Republican rag for a really long time. Our local paper is the local paper that sponsored Ted Nugent as a spokesperson, the celebrity host of their big outdoor festival. They syndicated Ann Coulter for years. They were a Republican rag. And they finally shrunk down to the size of literally a twig. They would arrive on our porch, no bigger than an inch around, mostly obituaries and sports. And we hung on to our subscription because we thought, as bad as this is, and it's really bad, local journalism is kind of important.
Right. And
But
we
then
thought
was like,
we really needed to support our local paper
yes, out of pity, basically
out of pity.
And it
But then they kept
that didn't work.
increasing the price like every 10 days
Yeah, it just kept going up and up and
to
up.
the point where it was like $7 every 3
ridiculous.
days to get the paper. That was nothing.
And
But it was AP stories, 2 AP stories, and a bunch of
obituaries
obituaries.
and sports, local sports. Well, and one of my friends, prominent local person on Facebook, started doing the Peoria Files or the Rockford Files, which is
the Rockford
for
Files.
some reason, our paper was full of stories that had nothing to do with anything within a 10-county region.
Yeah.
It was just rip and read shit from a completely different community that had nothing to do with us. There was like dog trapped up on roof in Rockford.
In Rockford, which is on the other side of it's north. It's on the other side of the state from us.
It is.
South Central Illinois. Yes.
And they got rid of their staff and they gutted the building and they sold it. And the editor who I knew resigned
to try to save jobs.
To try to save jobs, and that didn't work. It's just a shit show. And it's a Republican shit show. It's a shitty Republican rag. And so we canceled our subscription. And we've never looked back. And every now and then we get in the mail a letter begging us to come back. Which is hilarious. And this is one we got just this very week. I'm reading it to you now. Dear Blue Gal, it doesn't say Blue Gal. Change is never easy. We acknowledge that we made changes to your subscription to the State Journal Register, which may have caused you to cancel. We've heard you and would love for you to give us one more shot at our new, consistent monthly subscription plan with lower pricing guaranteed for 2 years. I'll jump a paragraph or 2 ahead. As our industry evolves, we want to make the journey with you.
Evolves and journey is in there? Oh, my God.
We hope you'll give us another chance. Local journalism has never been more important, and we need your support. Blah, blah, blah. Let us move forward together today. You know, all of that is true, but this rag is not local journalism. It is a grift. It's
Rockford journalism. Yeah. But they definitely hurt us in terms of the continual increasing prices.
Yeah, they heard that.
They heard that.
They didn't hear the part about the content being
No, they didn't hear that part at all.
Fucking awful.
How dare you have Ann Coulter as a columnist in your paper? Well, we have to for both
balance.
Sides.
For
balance. For
really,
balance with whom?
Yeah, with what?
E.J. Dionne is your balance. Yeah.
And Mark Thiessen is in this paper.
Mark Thiessen is your balance with Ann Coulter.
No, they're on the right. On the left is like, Leonard Pitts and E.J. Dionne.
Yeah.
It was pathetic. And this is just because the average subscriber to the State Journal Register is 3 years dead.
Well, I was going to say they turn to the obituaries to see which friends are in there.
Yeah,
they do.
And I understand
that is just. I'm not being mean about that.
No,
that's true.
That's a fact. But they're trying to squeeze the last few nickels out of you by appealing to local journalism and making the journey together. Don't you think reporting is important? Yeah, I've thought all those things.
We've thought
my whole
that
life.
for 20 years. What happened to you?
And you are an example of everything that's fucking wrong with journalism. Yeah. So go away. Although please keep sending us letters every few months because we love it for content purposes.
Oh yeah, it's content for our podcast.
if we can turn this into a subscriber, into a Patreon, we'll take it all day long.
Hey, Drip Glass, each week we post to our Facebook page and website an internet kitty sent in by you, the listeners. We've had a run of dogs lately. So we're glad to have dogs. We're glad to have kitties. This week's internet kitty is a dog, but this dog is surrounded by internet kitties who keep him in line.
Aww.
Shorty is a Corgi Beagle mix, somewhere between 15 and 17 years old.
Oh.
He is a rescue dog who is barely tolerated by his 3 cats, known as Barn Cat 1, Barn Cat 2, and Barn Cat 3. Shorty's human is GB in Minnesota. And they write, I am a longtime podcast listener and current contributor and look forward to your podcasts every week. Unfortunately, I live in the middle of rural Trump world, and your podcast is an oasis of sanity every week to soothe the soul. Shorty and I enjoy our daily walks, and like you, we have cornfields about 2 blocks from our house. Keep up the good work. Of course, Shorty and Barn Cats 1 through 3 eat freshly poured food, pet food, our fake sponsor. And of course, Shorty and the 3 Barn Cats eat freshly poured pet food, our fake sponsor. Whether you serve Pet Store Perfection or Dollar Store Dreck, and by the way, Shorty eats Pet Store Perfection because he is pampered.
Yeah.
Your cats and dogs will sit in the barnyard and demand that the food they eat is only freshly poured. Freshly poured, freshly poured.
Oh, my Lord,
it's freshly poured. You can visit Shorty and the Barn Cats. That does sound like a band, doesn't it? Shorty and the Barn Cats are at our Facebook page and website, and you can send your internet kitty, dog, or other pet to us at our email address, proleftpodcast@gmail.com, or you can also write to both of us. Feel free to write us. We love hearing from you. Be aware that if you write to us at any of our addresses, we reserve the right to read your email or U.S. Postal Service. Go, Postal, Unions, letter on the air unless you say otherwise. Hashtag fire to joy. I'm going to keep saying that. Don't forget our gourmet coffee guideline. If you can afford to buy an espresso-based beverage for yourself, buy one for us. This is not charity. This is our job. Approximately 2% of our listeners support this podcast with a contribution. We've gone up, Driftglass. Thank you, thank you, thank you. If you are not yet a Patreon or PayPal or regular check supporter, please join in. See our website, proleftpod.com, for details. We've got PayPal. We've got a regular P.O. Box mailing address where you can send a check. And we've got all the Patreon information. Everything's there at proleftpod.com. Please share our show on social media. And if you love this podcast, get someone else to listen. That would be a fun Christmas gift to give somebody. Here's this great podcast you can listen to. Doesn't cost nothing.
Don't cost nothing.
And thank you for doing that. Hey, Driftglass, how are the Internet Kitties doing this week?
Well, Blue Gal, the Internet Kitties are honestly a lot more excited by the squirrel on the stoop eating sunflower seeds than the premiere of Avatar: The Way of Water.
Thank you, Driftglass.
You're welcome, Blue Gal. I love you.
I love you too.
Let's think about living. Think about living. Let's think about loving. Think about loving. Let's think about the hooping and the hopping and the popping and the loving, lovey-dovey. Let's forget about the wine and the crying, the shooting and the dying and the fellow with the switchblade knife. Let's think about living. Let's think about life.
The Professional Left podcast is recorded under a Creative Commons license, copyright 2022, DGBG Productions Incorporated.